So we started doing that. And do we want to do a round robin introduction, or do we want to just kind of dig in?
I vote round robin.
Okay, I'm Kat. I am co-chair of the Student Support Council, with the idea of having a space for parents to come and be involved and teachers to come and be involved and us to work together. I have two kiddos, seventh and 8th grader, Sadie and Liam.
I'm Marco Cabrera. I'm the other half of leadership in this committee. And I'm also on the board. I have a son named Matt who's in 8th grade. And it's nice to see everyone.
Me next. I can't tell who's next because we're all different on each other's screens.
It's all you.
My name is Jessica. My daughter Sadie, not to get confused with the other two Sadies, is a 7th grader at Greenspire. I also have a sophomore at West. That's about it for my kids and where they're going to school. So.
I'm Jackie. I'm a new parent. I have a 6th grader named River, Eden River, but River is what she's going by at Greenspire. I have 11th grader and a 9th grader at West as well.
Is she a Firefly fan?
Who, Eden?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I was, yes. We've sort of introduced River Tamlin, but we haven't, it was late. We didn't get to finish through it, but I was actually looking at it today as possibly watching Serenity at least, and then maybe taking her through the series. But yeah, us. Guilty.
Hi, this is Amy. I'm also a new parent to Greenspire. So Jen and Amy, we are Cameron's moms. So he's in 6th grade.
Nice to see you, Jen. How about Deb next?
Deb, can you introduce yourself and tell us who you belong to?
Okay, yeah, I'm Deborah Rice. So I'm Jack and Sophia Vincent's mom. Jack's in 8th grade and Sophia's in 7th. I don't know how to get, this is a new computer, so I'm trying to figure out how to use it. I usually Zoom on my laptop. So anyway, that's it. Can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we can hear you. It may be that you have to give your computer camera permission to use for Zoom to use the camera. So that might be in preferences of Zoom, if that's helpful.
Yeah, I'm looking around.
Okay, yep.
Okay.
All right. Christy, I think you're up next.
Okay. I'm Christy, and I am Honorary and Poet's mom. That is 8th and 6th, respectively. I am also Aiden's mom, who is now a junior at West after having completed Greenspire.
Excellent. And it looks like we've got Tara left. Not sure.
Can you hear me okay?
Now we can, yes.
Okay, great. Hi there. My name is Tara Worm. I'm Mitchell Worm's mom. He is an 8th grade student currently at Greenspire.
It's nice to have you all here.
So with all of the questions and concerns that parents were having about the hybrid model and what's going to be next, we really wanted to have an opportunity for people to come and throw ideas out there and to have a place to have discussions and have an idea center. And that's really the, what the Student Support Council is for. And so we want to make sure that we were there for the parents and the teachers and the kids. So really, this is your listening space to throw out concerns, ideas, suggestions, all those things. And we're going to take that and try and create some actionable items or suggestions or support pieces to work with the school on so that we can have the chance to be as involved as possible.
Yeah, I think it's really important to remember that as we have a volunteer board, it's, there's very specific ways that we can communicate and interact and make sure things happen. So just want to make sure that happens. I guess we could start by just asking. I know we've heard several concerns back and forth. Is there anything that anyone would like to say about the hybrid model, how they're feeling about things, positive, negative, neither? We're happy to hear it. Go ahead, Jackie.
Well, so far, I think I'm happy with it so far. My daughter seems to enjoy the days that she's there. I actually learned that she did very well virtually after the quarantine kicked in. And so I was actually surprised at that. She was able to keep up with her tag classes without a problem and didn't forget her homework at all. So, I mean, she just finishes her work really early sometimes. So I've just kind of added enrichment to it. Just like, here, watch this crash course in history. Here, like, go rake the leaves. There's PE. I don't care if you rode your bike already. I'm glad that we're hybrid. I'm seeing things blow up around here as far as cases go, and having people who I know that are at Munson who are having high concerns. And then Central High, I just found out that I think the infection that happened where they're shutting it down, like they're quarantining like several sections of English that for until November 2nd. And so, and people are, I think that a lot of people are still acting like business as usual. And my friend was like, I was just invited to a party at Lucky Jack's. So I think it's just, I think we're at this space where it's just going to skyrocket really soon. So I'm feeling very happy with what we're doing here. And I just wish that my one child, who's actually, I said my one son was at a 9th grade at West, but he's actually virtual live. And so then my other son, my oldest, goes to West for 3 hours because his classes were not offered live. And then he goes to Career Tech Center, where he's in a room with like 12 other kids, and it's a big room, and they're so far away on their computers that he can't even talk to them. I feel pretty safe about him being there because the distancing's there, but like not at all at the high school. There's like 30 kids in his room and no windows. so anyway, I'm pleased is all I have to say. That's basically my perspective.
I definitely hear that. My youngest is at Central Grade, and I know they're doing a lot, but it still is nerve-wracking to have 25 kids poured into a classroom with no ventilation.
I can go next if that's all right. So the first day of hybrid went by, and Kat received like a 10 p.m. text message from me that was probably like 3 pages of scrolling because of how frustrated I was. I work full time. My husband works full time. My other daughter's over at West. Sadie isn't necessarily always the best at staying focused on her computer stuff, or she'll rush through it, or if she doesn't understand it, she's not going to reach out and talk to a teacher. So there's really important social skills that she needs to learn in person. So first week went by, I questioned my sanity. I emailed Robert. I told him that I didn't understand how parents could possibly work and help their kids with school. And then we made it through the second week. I got a little bit better. I was feeling pretty good. And then I was like, okay, cool. So if we can just get through like, I don't know, a month, maybe 2 months with no change, that would make me incredibly happy right now. And then we come into this week, and CD's classes are Thursday, Friday, and she won't be going because we are all in self-isolation. We are waiting a pending COVID test for a close member. My daughter is on the high school swim team, which is a co-op between Central and St. Francis, and several of the swim members have been quarantined. So because of this hybrid model, if there was to be some sort of infection or was to be something, it's only going to affect half the school, which means the other half is still going to get that very valuable in-person education until the other one can get up, plus an entire day in between to sanitize and clean and plan. And I don't know, Sadie's loving the Kahoots on the student councils. So those have been a lot of fun. I'm still struggling. We're still not getting everything done. We're still not, like the math isn't getting done, or she doesn't join Zoom, or we think an assignment's due on a day that it's not due. And then I have to remind myself that this is an incredibly unique year. Flexibility is key. And I think that the teachers are going to give us a lot of grace and give our students a lot of grace this year. I value education, like it's way up on my top priority of things to do. I've always researched the schools that my kids go to. I've chosen, we started out at GTA. I moved Sadie to Greenspire because I loved the project-based education and everything that went on like that. And then Kaya went to West because I felt that it was important to also incorporate somewhat of a, I guess, a more real world experience. There's a lot more things that happen at West that you have to learn to deal with than say at GTA, where she's like, Mom, kids didn't smoke in the bathroom at GTA or vape. And honestly, that's kind of the stuff that happens at high school, but it's really good for them to know how to handle it. So we're adjusting and we're doing okay. One thing I'm really glad about Greenspire is they actually have a plan for when families have to self-isolate. So I've already reached out to Robert. He knows that we're isolating, that we're here, and he's gonna make sure Sadie's hooked up with any virtual education that she can do so that she's not falling behind the other students. And hopefully we're only in this situation until like Monday or Tuesday of next week. But in the event that we're not, we could be here for, you know, the family could be in this for another 2 weeks to a month. So I think there's a lot of benefits to having it, but I would never discount the value of an in-person education because we knew the risks with going in person at both schools, and our family chose to do it anyway. And now here we are. And I'm very sad about not being able to go to work because I really like my job. And I like not being at home. But this is where we are. And that's my thought on hybrid. It's hard. I've cried a lot. We've adapted better. We're finding the weaknesses. We're working on them with the teachers. And Tori has been an amazing asset at Greenspire. The poor lady has listened to me cry more than once. So anyways, those are my thoughts.
I just wanted to chime in and say thank you for saying all of that. I'm really grateful that despite it's a rough situation that you're able to self-isolate, and I'm really sorry for the way that makes it harder.
Not that it's my turn to talk, but I have 3 kids. I work full time. Sorry, I'm talking. Is that okay? Okay. I have 3 kids. I work full time. My husband works at the hospital along with other things that he does that are extra. And my work is pretty heavy and very involved. And so like I'm lucky because some of my, I'm sorry, what? Oh, okay, sorry, I think I'm hearing somebody's mic. So when COVID happened last year, one thing that I found really helpful was to make like a flexible schedule for my kids that was not like, so I didn't have to be like strict routine, like you have to start at this, do this. I was just like, you have to have breakfast around 9 and start school by 10. Check your email by 10. And then we had Alexa Echo Dot in my kids' rooms, and they would have like verbal reminders, like 10 minutes before, Eden, remember your Zoom meet. And then she would like be like, oh, I got to do my Zoom meet. I was really lucky because our teachers were really good at communicating. And she actually, as a 5th grader, had more work than my high schooler, my middle schooler. And she was a kid who forgot to turn her work off all the time. She was having trouble with attention in there. But these tech teachers were really, really great at communicating. So if she missed something, they would just send a quick email. She'd be like, oh, I just forgot to turn it in. But then she was really great at self-pacing. And then I was like, okay, at noon, eat and like have recess till 1, you know, like around that time. And I think that really worked for us was just like I posted on the refrigerator and they kind of set these like verbal or these like audio reminders for them. So it would go off. And that really worked because it wasn't really rigid and we could be flexible throughout it. And I was like, if you're done by 2, then you can do whatever you want to after 2. And so they just had like 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours like in the early afternoon where they're doing work. And that was usually sufficient. And I don't know if that'd be helpful for you with your kids, Jessica, as far as trying to kind of figure that out. I don't know. I just thought I'd offer that. And I left the link I put in there was my Pinterest board for when I was like the forced COVID homeschooler. So there's lots of different like experiential things in there. So feel free to look at those. I'm done. I'll shut up. I talk too much.
Thank
Bye.
you. Actually, with everything you just said and stuff that's being posted into the chat, we're going to take that down afterwards, and then we're going to get it all kind of published out on the Greenspire site, because I'm also hearing a lot of really good ideas as far as suggestions and enrichment ideas that I think we could all benefit from.
Another thing that is available is a schedule frame that Robert put out via email, and I think it's also on the website, that is just a general, here's a way that you can structure your day. And it's not a you must do this again, but it's another option for having some kind of a template, because I know that we've had to have some kind of schedule in our house in order to get anything done, to remember to eat meals, to remember to change our clothes. Like, yeah, flexible, you're right. Flexible routine is super helpful. But when we haven't had that flexible routine, we still had to remember that we have to get up at a certain time and we have to get going. So like that's one thing that we've had to work really hard on, is reading assignments really, really well. And because there was a misinterpretation about when something was due today, and it was thinking it was due today instead of on the 31st. And so that was completely derailed like an hour and a half of trying to calm down. And that's not really a school thing. That's something that we do regardless of if we're in person or hybrid or anything, because my Sadie, because we have two Sadie parents here tonight, my Sadie is incredibly school oriented and incredibly like blinders on, must get the thing done. The thing has to be done right this second, even though it's not due for 3 weeks. And she's really good at it, and but gets stressed out because of that, and then sometimes rushes, which I think Jessica, you seem to and Jacqueline, you seem to understand those. But just having a routine of any kind has helped alleviate some of that, because we would get stuck. And even just having certain things like, okay, if you get stuck, get up, walk around, go outside for 10 minutes, take some deep breaths, splash of water on your face. And that seemed to help like reset, if you will. And it made me think of kind of some of the brain break type of thing they do when they're in person, or if someone's having a particularly bad time going back to the creek and that kind of thing. So we try to do some of the things that they're doing as self-management or as resets at home.
Our experience here has actually been a little different. Claire and I both work full-time, but pretty much since we've moved back to Traverse City, we've worked from home. So we already have a bit of a routine. The kids being here do add some distractions and interruptions, but it doesn't actually stop us from working. So we're really kind of gifted on that level. As far as math in school, I think in part we're just kind of thinking, we're in a pandemic, like everything's going to be harder, things are not going to work as smoothly. Just that is like the base plate. But the way math works, it's like, I'm just going to trust him to do this thing. And there is always that, if it hasn't happened by X time, there's no internet anywhere. But for the most part, we're kind of allowing him to figure out how his schedule needs to work to maximize all the things he wants to do with the work that he has to accomplish. So I just think it's really interesting. I'm looking at it as college prep.
I'm sorry, could you mind if I interrupt just for a second?
Not at all.
Oh, Deb just got off, shoot. Anyways, Deb just left a really good comment in the comment line, and I'm not sure.
So like I see what she's saying, and that's a difficult thing to navigate. One of the things prior to startup, I had a group of people that we were sort of trying to work, like, how do we feel comfortable with kids in school and COVID? And one of the things that we thought was really important was to have like a support place that kids could go who couldn't be left at home or needed extra support. And I don't know, I know TCAPS sort of has like support learning centers. I don't know that they implemented the idea that we proposed, but, and I don't know what Greenspire can do for kids who are on hybrid schedules on non-hybrid days that need somebody, because like our idea was like, why don't we have it work like extended day, where you can have supported virtual learning in an environment while you're monitored, and you also have lunch and somebody's there. But you know, of course, we're just parents, but like I've done that job. So I don't know what Greenspire can do to help support a parent in that way if they don't have pod to pod with or family that can help. But that was just one idea that we kind of floated around. I mean, me and parents, whatever.
I can write that out and bring it up with Robert and some of the other people. Some of the challenges I'm aware of just right off the bat is we have a little bit of funding that we could work with. And if we can make it help parents by hiring another staff member, we're happy to do that. There is like financially, it's not an if, it's a when things are going to go significantly further south. So it's a trade-off, but we're totally willing to do that if we can make that help. The concern about being able to bring another student in when it's not in their time period, it ends up mixing the groups. You have one person that ends up being in both. So that I'm just saying that piece out loud because I know that's a concern, but I'll bring it up.
Right. Well, the thought was, is they're like in a self-contained room, so they don't mix with the other pods at all. They would be basically in a room. I mean, it would suck, but it would be monitored and they'd have space and somewhat, you know, adult supervision. That was the idea, so that you are not necessarily overwhelming. I don't know. TCAPS, I don't feel like really made a lot of good decisions.
Tara, I see that you're responding, and I do want to give a chance for everybody to talk if they want to talk, and Christy and Ryan and Reed. So please. Share.
Yeah. Here, hold on. Sorry, I take care of my mom, and this is the time that I normally feed her. So I'm trying to, I'm like moving around her kitchen, and then I'm like, oh wait, you guys, I can't even hear you because the reception's so bad. So a couple random thoughts for what it's worth. You know, we're automatically have designated pods for this quarter, right? I don't know if it makes sense somehow, but I'm certainly open to if there are a certain number of kids that are struggling, is there a way to firm up, you know, like an educational pod that I say, you know, for my kid, you know, my kids, we'd totally be open to doing some extra Zooming or stuff that we can do to make it work for the kids that are struggling or for the families that really don't have the flexibility. During the day, I have more flexibility than I do, say, in the evenings. But, you know, boy, if there's a couple kids that, you know, we're outside a ton. So in our little education, again, I'm going to stick to the educational pod because it's already delineated via the school. That's who we already have the exposure with. That's who we're cycling with. So can we take advantage of that in some kind of way? And I say all that, and I will point out that we certainly are a highly vulnerable family. I've got a 90-year-old with a dementia over here. My husband just had some heart surgery. So, and then my older daughter, my grown daughter, takes care of a quadriplegic. So we're trying to be mindful, but I think that we're mindful and still can come up with ways to help one another and to make it all work. And then my only other thought is we have one board in one wall, our entire kitchen wall is chalkboard. And so oftentimes we make lists there, but my girls were like, Mom, can't you just make us like a check sheet that we can, you know, like laminate it and like, so we can check the boxes, whatever. So, you know, I do that. So, I kind of try to keep it mixed up over here. Otherwise it gets too boring. But I laminated Robert's form. I add lines to that. I create my own on the board. I write little love notes for them to wake up to, that also have a long list of laundry items that they need to take care of. So I don't know if any of that's useful, but I certainly am. I'm open to trying to make it all work. My older son is completely online at West, and that is the true suck zone, because we didn't qualify. Like, he's already taken the classes that he could have done the virtual live program, but 3 of the 4 classes he'd already done. So we're stuck with that horrible online thing that they're calling school. And yet we're trying to make it work. So he's, figuring out that, oh gosh, it works way better if I go to NMC because the distraction factor is so high. And I'm having to do some similar things with my girls, like, where are you going to work better? And it's not always pretty over here. But we're figuring, we're certainly learning things about ourselves during quarantine that we perhaps wouldn't have learned any other way. So
I think that's extremely helpful. I noted the idea of like a laminated sheet that you can check off, but I also hear the idea that you were talking about. I think it's the same thing Jackie's talking about. We find a way to get it like one pod that can be there, in the vein of trying to make this actionable, and how can we push this forward to be successful. Does anyone have any suggestions on like some of the challenging pieces of that? Like, how might we decide which students are in that spot? I feel like
that was it seemed like there were a lot of kids, there were families that were really clear. This is my kid's really dysregulated. That's not the language I heard, but I heard really clearly that there were some parents that were saying, this really isn't working for our family. So I think it's not just a kid issue, it's also a family issue. And then there's no judgment there. Like, we're all going to have turns where we're on the struggle bus, and it would be it'd be nice to come up with a system where there doesn't need to be any kind of blame. It's just like, I'm there. I mean, certainly last week, there was surgery going on over here, and it was a lot to navigate. So if there's I just feel like, I think we can begin with some kind of system where families are able to kind of raise their hand, like, hey, and if we know that that's part of our pod. So for me, I need some kind of designation. Like, I need to see the list and like know, oh, this family is actually a family that's in our pod.
You could probably, sorry.
Go ahead.
You could probably easily do like a survey about, I would need assistance. What days do you school? How many days do you need it? And then people match themselves up. And I think if you as an organization and Greenspire as a group gets too involved, then you have liability, because you have to think about background checks. Are these homes safe for people? I'm sorry, coming from a trauma clinician perspective of like, I don't want my kids go anywhere that I don't like personally know the families. Just, I'm jaded by my work, but I think as much as you can do with matching people together and letting the parents decide, okay, this would work for me, and figure that out. And I think you can do it pretty easily through like a Google form, and then making a spreadsheet of people who are like, okay with their information being shared. You coordinate it by pod days, and then those people, you can even, if you wanted to really help, do a mass email of all the Monday, Tuesday kids, all the Thursday, Friday kids, and then let them match up together. Or, I mean, that's just my idea. Sorry.
I was kind of curious because of that long email chain. to maybe hear from some of the people that really want to go back to the 5 days a week. I mean, I think ideally that's what everybody wants. Everybody, I want normal, and I want the, guys, I work in festival and events. I now do retail for festival and events instead of selling tickets and other stuff. So I, you know, my job's pivoted, everything's changed. But I would be kind of interested in hearing how people think we actually could go back to 5-day in person. Because what I'm seeing from TCAPS right now, it's not going to be long at all before they're probably all back virtual. So I guess I'm just kind of curious if that's okay to ask.
Are you asking me or just the room in general?
I think
I am asking the room in general.
Okay.
If there's anybody in here that's up that really wants to, I don't want to miss hearing from somebody else that shares the same views that Deb did, where Deb didn't necessarily talk, but was able to leave that, but we weren't able to have a,
conversation.
yeah, about it, or just even let her say her piece.
And I think a lot of people don't feel like they can talk about it. If we all stayed on the email chain and actually read through the emails, we all seen that the people that had a disagreeing approach to this were hit real hard with the, well, it's working fine with my family. I stand by Greenspire. We all knew this could happen. Well, what I respond to with that is we sure did. But we also look at medical data and science to support. I work in healthcare administration. I believe there's a decent amount of harm happening in itself, with consideration of the fact that these kids need to be social and they need to be in school. So I've sat back and forth a lot. I'm not going to lie. When I first read that letter, I read it 4 times. Reasoning to go hybrid was, you could have a child in TCAPS. That's a sibling to a Greenspire student. That's risk. And I thought, well, what about the parents that have been working this whole time? That's risk too. I think the amount of time given, I know anybody'd have to be pretty quick reactive to needing to switch their platform and how they're doing things. But I think it was so fast that it didn't consider how our 6th grade students' families were going to be put into the position that they were. I don't know personally what I would have done had I had a child 11 years old that couldn't legally be home alone and now has to be in a hybrid situation. So I had to take a step back personally and say, what's going to work best for me? And I withdrew my son entirely and went ahead with a at-home model all the way through. I will say it was very disorganized. He didn't come home with a hotspot till the last day of school. And I watched the kids get picked up that final day with tears in their eyes. And I thought, I really hope Greenspire is doing the right thing right now. But I also sit back and see the COVID cases climbing. So I'm not sure how I feel. I could be impacted worse if I had a younger child. I wouldn't be able to just be home and be teaching or work a hybrid model. And I've talked to a lot of parents through Facebook Messenger. Before that email went out, there was a lot of talk happening behind the scenes. And I actually inquired with a few of them that I didn't see come on this call and say, where are you guys at? Where are you guys at? But they're kind of hushing down now, you see. They tried to talk a little bit over email and it didn't get very far. They were hit with the parents that are in more of a fortunate situation that can be home and do these things. So it'll be interesting if they do step up and say anything now and feel comfortable to do so, because they weren't supported. It was sad to watch. Yeah.
I didn't mean to exactly clap. I clicked the wrong thing. And I don't want to it makes me sad to feel like you felt they weren't supported. I think it was like the manner in which it came across. It felt very, a lot of strife. And it was weird for me because I don't know Greenspire that well. And all of a sudden I get an email along with like 70 something other or 170 parents. And so I have people, like I have my neighbor next door is schooling from home and melting down. Like, I know like this is really hard. And I'm sorry that they feel unsupported, because I did respond. I didn't respond for a long time until I felt like I felt like I should provide a perspective from a mental health perspective that was like, kids can be okay. Even because it felt unbalanced. And so I don't know. I don't know how to repair the harm to the parents to make them feel safe in returning and voicing their concerns. I feel like it would have been nice. I would have loved to have known that there was a good group of parents that were upset that we could come together and problem solve as a group, instead of sort of like a call to action email that felt very angry in the tone that I was reading. Because like I understand like a lot of families do struggle. I don't know. I guess I don't know how to, I guess maybe Tara, since you're talking to those people, you might be the best person to find out what would make them feel health or safe to express their concerns and be open to problem solving.
I don't disagree. I think it's worth having a conversation. But I do recognize this is just hard times. And, you know, sometimes when people are in a place like that, that they're just not happy with what's happening, you know, they may not feel like there's any other resolution than getting back to school, you know, and so it's just tough all the way around. I think the best thing that could have ever happened, and I meant to mention this while I was talking, is that had Greenspire, as they mentioned, always went with the idea that they were going to be hybrid the moment they could, that would have been really great to communicate that. We were receiving weekly emails all summer long, and it would have given every parent the opportunity to make a decision that worked best for them then. So that's the final thing I would say that was just a little disheartening, is we didn't know that's what you planned. And had we all known, we could have all made decisions perhaps differently, but it is what it is. But I would be glad to orchestrate any further communication with some of the people that I know that are struggling hard with the decision that Greenspire came to early in the game.
One thing that I'd like to speak to there, because this is a concern I've heard come up quite a bit, and it is an absolute valid concern. I know the conversation was, we need to be flexible, but nobody heard the idea that we were switching to hybrid until late September, and then it was, you know, October 5th when it happened. I don't know if anybody knows why that happened, but I can share with you. The entire summer, we had two potential sets of rules. We on the board, Robert, and we had to have a plan in to GVSU by July 1st. So the plans that we put forward had to make some assumptions, because the two plans conflicted, like the sets of requirements had conflicting information. August 20th, the final rule set was solidified, and it wasn't actually until almost midway through September when the first COVID response document that needed to be approved. And the process for that is it has to go to the GVSU board, and then it comes to our board before it can do anything at all. GVSU caught this piece in the new set of rules that we weren't accommodating. And that was basically that the plan was that we would have a certain number of students, an estimated, I think, of 12, 11% were going to be virtual. And that's almost exactly what we got. That made all of the plans work. What this rule actually put forward is that every student, whether they're in person, excuse me, in person or virtual, were required a seat in the building. We had initially had the idea that it would be, you decide for your student at the beginning of the quarter. But what we learned is that if a student comes in and says, I want to work from school today, we have to let them. And we had 3 students do that. And basically what it did is it made us very quickly have to think about, how can we possibly have enough space? And at that time we had 127 students, and it just wasn't physically possible.
I'm Jen, Cameron's stepmom. We're new to Greenspire, and we really got attached to the vision early on when we met and did a tour there, and loved the hands-on and loved the social aspect and the outside time. Cameron's coming from a Montessori classroom, and this was very exciting for us to think about, having the social, the outside, the project-based, the teamwork, all things that he could use. and going hybrid was definitely a shocker. We're a little bit equipped here. I've worked in the education system, so I always have lots of resources for the kids, like for snow days, for summer, just to kind of keep them involved in academics. So I think that part we're okay. I can always find new work for him to do. I'm very engaged with what he's doing in his academics and his outside time and structure, and he does really well being at home. My biggest concern is, or surprise, or what was a shock to me, is that we went hybrid so quickly without having, and maybe I'm missing something, but without having sure evidence that was happening in the school that said, oh my gosh, cases are here or something is happening. I understand that it was, we can't do it the Greenspire way, so we're just not going to do it, and we're going to cut all social time to 2 days a week. What I wanted to see happen, which I feel like Greenspire is such a community and parents are so involved, that what would have been great is to have some ideas come forth in that short amount of time. So the first idea I had that I shared at the last, I think it was the beginning of the board meeting, is instead of going 2 days and 3 days off, is what if the groups were split in two and there was a half day for the groups 5 days a week where they went 8 to 11, then there's 11, 12 time off for teachers to kind of regain their footing, have lunch, the kids would go home and have lunch. Then the next group would come in and even go 12 to 4. I didn't know if 4 was a possibility, if there were state regulations that you couldn't extend the day in that way. I'm sure there's some policy about that, but I know that the overlapping of the two groups would have to be careful as you're having like carpool coming and going. But then that would give Cameron the 5 days a week of hands-on. It would give the social aspect 5 days a week instead of just the 2 full days. It seems to me that you would actually get more one-on-one hours, attention hours in that 5 days versus the 2 hours, or I'm sorry, the 2 days. So if you're talking per student per hour contact is actually more half day, 5 days a week than it is the 2 full days, if I do my math correct. And I think, you know, I heard in the last board meeting where a lot of these kids are getting math 1 day a week. So even they're there 2 days a week in middle school, this foundation for academics is so very important as they start getting older, that it was a shock to me that he's only getting math 1 day a week. And again, I can give him math till he turns blue at home, but I feel like I have a very unique situation being able to work at home. So I feel for the parents that don't have that background, don't have the resources, and don't have the structure. We've been building this structure since Cameron was in diapers, and this is just what we do. When there's a snow day, when you're home, when it's a weekend, we have structure. So he's already used to it. But like I said, it's a unique situation. So my biggest shock was that we didn't try to fill in a different schedule that may work for more people than what I feel like is working now. That's all.
I am aware that you had brought that up at the board meeting, but I also made note of it on the document I'm setting up here to make sure that it's a point that we can continue discussing and getting more info on.
Thank you, Marco.
I know there's some chat going on the right here. I can't keep up, but if anyone else would like to speak, please do. Carla?
Hi, I'm just wondering about some sort of just armchair wisdom sort of solutions, like the plastic walls that we all see at grocery stores and post offices that nobody has brought up. Wondering about renting from spaces that are nearby. I know the trailers were considered, but I'm just really not hearing that rocks are getting turned over. The board meeting felt very complacent and resigned to me, and nobody's, except you, Marco, nobody on the board is sitting home with kids that are losing it like we are. And I felt really, really disheartened after that meeting. It's just felt like a lot of old people. So I'm just sharing from the heart that I would like to see more stones being turned over about ways to get our kids socialized and caught up educationally. Like Cameron's mom was just saying, we know that 7th grade is a critical time for kids. It sort of is a make or break year. And I just see a lot of not my problem tone. And I really miss Kevin.
I hear you. I'm really sorry to hear that. I know exactly what you mean. So I just want to say that I hear you.
Thank you, Marco. Thank you.
I believe that Robert has the intention of assembling a document of a lot of the stones that have been turned that have not been made clear. I know that there's been a lot of effort that there's so many things that lead to dead ends that we stop considering communicating. So I think he's going to assemble a list. He's intending to put that out with the next weekly email. I'm hoping that that helps. I'm really hoping that, between these conversations and the document I'm creating from here, I plan on putting up the SSC website so that we can actually really have conversation and iterate on it. I'm hoping that the list that he sends out allows us to see, like you said, the plastic walls. You might be able to see in plain text, oh, he didn't consider plastic walls. Let's talk about that solution. So I'm hoping that this all gives us more information so that we can start contributing more suggestions.
And maybe if there is a clear message from at least those of us whose kids are not thriving right now, whose parents, like Cameron's mom was saying, we are stretched beyond stretched. And so that is where we're coming from. And that seems to be the missing ingredient in these documents and these data points and these links and these board meetings. I'm not hearing the heart of the matter, which is our children. I'm done.
Thank you, Carla.
This is Cameron's other mom, Amy. And so just a couple things. I think, Marco, that him sending out something like that would be really great. I think probably if anybody has learned anything over the last couple of weeks is that communication with this whole posse of parents is really going to be the best because, we just don't know what we don't know. And so, like Tara said, we just assume that stones are not being turned over when perhaps they are. And I know the feeling probably is not intentional, but well, we did that already, so we don't need to let them know. And again, I don't think it's intentional that way, but if you were to let out that information, then at least the feeling is that things are being done to help out. The other thing that Jen was just wondering about is what about Zoom with the other kids? Like, is that something just to throw out there that Greenspire could help set up or give access to, where kids could Zoom with each other to talk academics? Not maybe some chit chatting, of course, because they're kids and they're going to do that, but that would allow them to to get together and do academics. Because like I think someone was saying earlier, there's always a concern about getting together. We're new to the school, a month in. We don't know very many families, let alone what their beliefs are and what their household is like, and so on and so forth, plus every other logistic you could possibly think of as it relates to getting kids together.
I know that sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, that was my initial or my original intent was that educational pods are already created, so there could be more Zooming, there could be more connection. Is there a potential for outside stuff? Potentially, but my thought was we've already got a lot of pieces in place. So how can we not take advantage of that? Why can we not take advantage of that to help one another out?
What I was going to say there, I think that the Zoom meetings between pods or friend groups or whatever, I think that was brought up before, and I think it's a really, really brilliant idea. I think when I pass that on, it might be Robert and Sarah are so beyond overloaded. So I think that was probably not a priority for them. One thing I could say there is, now granted, this makes some assumption, so I apologize. Zoom is a free software, and we can get groups of people together for up to 45 minutes if nobody pays for anything. Now, I know that assumes you have a computer and internet that can do it, or a phone or a tablet of some sort. That's going to be a limiting factor. I think the students' school computer should be able to handle it. Maybe something we could do, I don't know if it's SSC or just parents in general, try and allow space. This group is going to meet at this time. Here's the meeting ID. It'll be a 45-minute meeting.
I do believe that the Chromebooks do work with Zoom. I have a paid account that I'm happy to set up meetings all day long for the kids to just go and hang out on if they want to. I don't have that. Most of my meetings are not during school hours. So like have at, as far as I'm concerned, have at with that account. So if they need more than 45 minutes, they can do it.
Kat, maybe we could set up a doodle. No, a poll isn't what we want. We want like a Google form.
I think Jacqueline was talking about doing that. Yes, yep, doing a and do talk. I love that you're typing. And I love that this is all, because then we can take that ideas. I don't want to be the only one talking.
No, I know. I just talk too much. I'm always like, no, I'm happy to do the forum. I used to coordinate our PTO, like, this would be, it was really similar to that. And then I would happy to like mail out the things. I also think that we could do like lunch Zooms, and we can throw in themes where the kids can have like, just like gamify it a little bit for them. You would have to like maybe set up a kid to take lead, or have a parent who's not working at that moment to take lead. But I think it could be pretty fun, you know, and then we can pair up kids, especially maybe kids who don't have strong friendships yet. Like we have Atomic Brawl was one of the things I linked in my Pinterest thing. And it's like a game, it's like chess and magic cards, but silly. And so two people can play and chat, and it's really fun, and it has strategy. So I think that there's ways that we can also be like, my kid needs a buddy because they're not making friends, and we can like met. I love connecting people. If I could get paid to connect people, I would love to do that.
I think that's a really great idea. Oh, sorry, just really one fast sentence. I think it's a really great idea, and I like the part where you're saying in there that, or basically, we need help connecting the people together. I mean, we can all at home say it's a great idea, but whoever the you guys is at school would have to be the ones that would help connect it and set it up. Because as I mentioned, we just don't know anybody to do that, to reach out, to organize that. So
I know very few people, but I know people. And I know how people are, and I know kids, and I love playing matchmaker in my real life. And so, I mean, so I'm like, if I do the form, Kat, then, I mean, my job is so cumbersome, but I typically have Fridays off. So maybe I can even call and talk to people. I don't know. I have a pretty tough case right now, but I'm like, so I don't know that I thought I'd commit to something really big, but like, I feel like I might feel better in 2 weeks after I get rid of the case I'm working on now. I can definitely do a Google form, and I can definitely come up with some resources, and just how deep I go as far as how actively I do.
We can continue that conversation.
Yeah.
I do want to give Jessica a chance to talk.
I just to come back to like Carla and Tara, and I know I see Rita and Renee in here, and I know they haven't, and Sam. I see Sam's typed, but I know not everyone spoke yet. But I just wanted to make sure, because with that email, so I read that email, and the first time I read it, as I read it, is we're going to do it this way, and it doesn't matter if you're happy with hybrid or you're not happy with hybrid, but we're going to get a group of parents together to just make sure it goes back to 5 days a week. And then as the comments came in, and I read them, and I sat there and I was like, oh yeah, that mom has a great point. Or yeah, nope, I feel that way too. And I see all of that too. So I think one thing that I would really like to see come out of this, whether it's at this meeting or the next meeting, is I would really like to see like what we want to see from the school, to know that, okay, we've discussed, we want to see why we ended up here. and I've canceled now 3 events, and big ones. So we've canceled the Cherry Festival, the Iceman Cometh, and the Leaping Leprechaun, which was our first one that canceled right out of the gate. And we have over communicated everything with our cancellations. And anyways, people still ask really weird questions, but so I think that's really good. But I also think it's really good to be like, the board is going to consider going back to 5 days a week when X, Y, and Z is met. You know, when staff can have days off to do professional development, or not professional development, but their collaboration, because the projects with Greenspire only work when all the teachers can work together. Because I love the fact that what you're learning in science and math is going to go along with what you're learning in language arts and your nature classes. I love the fact that it all works together. So I know that's a huge component to the Greenspire education system. But I would like to see what it would look like. And I think, and maybe Tara or Carla can chime in if this would help with the other parents, to kind of have like that guide that these are the things the board is currently looking at. We all know it can change in every minute, but these are the things the board is currently looking at in order to move us forward to 5 days a week education. I think that's the ultimate goal for everyone. I think we all really want to be back there. So I just think it would be kind of nice just to kind of like have that roadmap. And then I feel like having that communicated with us would also probably help with reassurance and all of us being on the same page. So
could that be as simple as having a flow chart for us? Because not everybody, it's not always easy for everyone, because we're all not all neurotypical to read a 3-page deep email to see what all of the data is. So even just say, if A happens, B happens, this is what happens. Is that?
I think that I can work towards assembling that. I have the 3 main, I've got a lot of stuff noted here, but the 3 main questions on what you just said, because I think this is really a beautiful point in this meeting. You know, what is everyone expecting to know that they're heard, and to communicate so that we all really feel like we're on the same page moving forward, and we're actually moving forward together. The 3 questions that I took that we need answers to are, why was this chosen? What options have been considered? And what is a clear list of items that will be required for us to go back 5 days? Did I miss anything that I need to have in there?
A side note on that, I think it was also oh, go ahead, Sam, go ahead.
No, I was going to speak to something else. Go ahead and finish your thought.
Oh, this is a sidebar also of what things were looked into, what rocks were turned over. Also, what rocks were turned over that got us to where we are now, and said, okay, nope, we can't do that. Okay, no, but why? You know, what was the process, so we can understand how we got where we're at. Did that make sense at all? Sorry, go ahead, Sam.
Well, I have to admit, I've been trusting that people are using good information and making the decision, and then our family's been adapting to that. And I guess, you know, we're fortunate, you know, that we've got enough flexibility to do it. But clearly I heard in that email string that that doesn't work for everybody. And so I think the other question that has to keep getting a lot of pressure for everyone is, so how do we make it work for as many people or as many families as possible? This is not a child issue. This is a family issue. You know, children do well if, you know, their parents are able to support them, or their parent or whatever. And, you know, I've been stretched at different phases of my life. I'm not as stretched as I have been in the past. So I think we just have to keep asking how are folks doing? What can be done to help make sure everyone gets through this? I do think people have asked clearly to understand what the criteria are for deciding, which is what you all were just referring to. And certainly that is going to be helpful to people. But I certainly don't want the corners cut on it. You know, I want to stick to some solid data points and not put folks at risk. But I'm certainly willing to participate in figuring out how to make it work for everyone, knowing that resources are not evenly distributed. You know, and that each child's needs and, you know, they're not evenly distributed. We have 2 siblings, so at least they have each other. You know, that's, some people just have one. That's a more complicated situation. So I just want us to, you know, have forums, and this is probably a good one to really get at that issue. And it is unfortunate that folks who have a lot of concerns aren't here. And we've heard a little bit voiced by others, which has been appreciated, but that's a little disheartening. And I think we should make note of that and go, what do we do? Because folks hopefully would be comfortable at least getting on and participating and letting others know what's going on.
I will say that I'm also very willing to set up additional meetings for people to come and talk, for parents to come and talk, so that we can do this more, so that the communication is increased rather than decreased, because I do want us to have the opportunity to work together to support each other. That's a really fundamental thing for me with being a part of our school, is to connect with other parents and families and guardians, and really, you know, that the unique families that we have bring something really wonderful. And to try and I don't want an us versus them mentality. I don't want that. I just want our kids to have all our support. And I know, and this sucks. It
does.
It's devastating to not have, to say to our kids, this is not what's going to happen, even though that's what you expected. It is really hard. But if providing additional spaces for people to come, and they can come as they feel comfortable, whatever I can do to create that space for listening and talking, I'm happy to do that.
Hey, also, this is Renee and Reed. Hi.
Hi.
So I completely, I mean, we agree with a lot of what's been said. Kat, I totally agree with what you just said. We jumped on because we wanted to fully hear all the, you know, what's being said and what is needed. Trying to fix this so that you can see us and not the ceiling. But you know, I think that more people would be part of this if we start fresh. I mean, this is our first year at Greenspire, so we don't know what normal is. That I just want to tell you how we read that email. The first email that came across, both of us, I mean, we both saw it, but we were in different parts of the house when we read it. And when we did come into the same room a little while after, we both took it the same way, that it was hostile, that parents wanted to be, you know, us versus them against Greenspire. And I think that was the reaction that came across from parents. I was I think the second person to respond, saying, please take me off this list, because that's how I took it. And then way down the email chain, Kat, when you responded, I think it was one of your last emails, we both looked at each other and said, that's the email that it should have started with, because I think it would have been a completely different reaction. So we wanted to get on anyway and see what's going on. And this is definitely something that we want to be a part of and try to help others out if that's possible. doing something where there's, times where people can get on. I don't know if anyone, when you guys were talking about pods, were you talking about pods online or pods in person? Either. Okay. Because that would be something, we have an only child. So, that'd be something that we would be interested in, just to get more of the interaction. So, yeah. So, and I do, I think if what's being talked about is relayed to all the parents, I think it'll come across differently. That because I think the way we took it was that first email was, this is what we want to do, regardless of what Greenspire wants to do, and we're gonna push through the 5 days. And like, I don't want any part of the drama. I just want a, positive experience. I want Greenspire to do great. I want the kids to do great. Or we. Yeah. And so anyway, we'll stay a part of it, and we want to see how we can help in any way.
Awesome. I will continue posting these meetings to the Facebook group to make sure everyone has access. So I put a link to our Greenspire site in the chat. Please do that. Check in, sign into the Facebook group so that we can get communication going.
Okay.
For everyone else, it's 8:12. It's past when we said we would keep you until. But I think what we're getting through is really, really important. So I just wanted to kind of give a few more minutes I really wanted to come out of this meeting with a clear list of things that we can do to move forward, to make sure we are all stepping forward with the same foot. And I know there are challenges. And I also know, and I'm very clear on, at this moment, I really have a lot of privileges and how I'm able to approach the situation. I know that some of you have been brave enough to step forward and voice that your challenges are hard and deep. So if you feel comfortable doing so, I would love to hear anything else that I can put on this list to make sure it gets researched and communicated.
Marco, I just have one short little thing to ask or request. It's nothing huge, but I went back and watched the huddle meeting from last week because I wasn't able to be a part of that. And Virginie Canner brought up to Robert that something that would be very helpful would be if the work was posted the night before, and/or a list of things that, these are the meetings that they have during the week, or these are the things that need to be done. Or so then at night I could, kind of check in and know exactly what he has coming up tomorrow, or even looking ahead to the whole week. And so that would be extremely helpful to help all of us parents kind of get our brain around it before it's in the middle of the next day. And they're like, it's done, it's great, it's all done, it's whatever. And I'm like, okay, hold on, now I have to look through it. But if I could get my head around it the night before, Jen or I, whomever is going to be working with him, that would be great. And then I did like his email today that said that they are looking to increase instruction time, for math and for some of the other classes. So that's great. I guess I feel like at this point, we probably aren't going back 5 days a week anytime soon. And while I hope that that is still the thing that is focused on, I want to make at home as good as it can be, and for us to be as proactive and prepared as we can be. So anyway, I just didn't hear anything more about that since her comment last Wednesday. So perhaps it's in the works, but I just wanted to bring it up again.
Wait, just to piggyback on what Amy said, I have asked, and so I'll do it in this group too. I would love, love, love to have the work posted the Friday night before the weekend starts, because both Mike and I work full time, normally away from the house, not this week, but normally away from the house. And so I know that would really help us to be able to work with Sadie if needed on Saturdays and Sundays instead of Mondays and Tuesdays when we're not here. So, or like you said, prepare for the next day so you know what you need to ask and do, just anything to kind of make it simpler on parents, but I also understand the schools doing the best they can. When I brought that up to Robert, he said that, oh, you know, the kids are already, the teachers are already working all weekend to get the stuff ready for Monday. So they'd have to get like 2 weeks in advance on 1 week. And part of me 100% understands that. But the other part of me that's like, well, when I need to get my job, you know, more done on my job, I just go in for the long haul and work my tail off until I'm at the point where I'm all caught up. But I completely understand everybody works differently. So, but thanks, Amy, for that too, because I completely could use just something that comes through at the night time that tells us what to expect the next day, even if that's all it was.
One thing I would also offer, and I offered this at the SSC meeting last Monday, is if you as a parent are honestly just having a moment when you're ripping your hair out and you need to talk to another parent, email me. I'm happy to be an ear, because I'm that person too, that when I'm banging my head against a wall emotionally, I need to step away and talk to another parent sometimes. So I'm happy to do that if that's helpful. It doesn't have to be me, but I'm here. And I'm also more available than some of the teachers and staff. So sometimes I can correlate things into one document and be able to be like, hey, these 5 things, can you help with those, or something like that.
And you're nicer than I am.
I wanted to
That's
chime in
actually-
really. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Oh, I was just gonna say, this is just a side note, and I meant to mention it earlier, but you were asking about using the Chromebooks and using Zoom. You definitely can do that. I do STEAM programming, and I have a lot of virtual classes, and my son has taken one of my classes, and they're all on Zoom, and he's been using his Chromebook. So, works.
Excellent, thank you.
I also think it would be worth putting on that survey if having another meeting next week or the week after or something like that, like this, just for throwing ideas around, for soundboarding, for having a place to go blah, is helpful.
Anybody else?
So is a survey definitely happening? I may have missed that part of the conversation. There was talk about doing a
Yes,
survey.
I'll do a
And
survey.
Robert-
I'll put a Google form together. I probably won't get to it till maybe Friday or Saturday, just based on my workload right now. So it might take me a little bit. I'll try to get on it as soon as I'm done with what I'm working on for work.
Just to make sure that we're clear, we talked about 2 separate things that I don't want to get confused. We talked about a survey just to see where people stand, and then separately the Google Forms to help coordinate Zoom calls between kids.
Could it not be the same thing?
Oh, it totally
if-
could. I just didn't want
Yeah.
either side to be forgotten.
Right. No, yeah. So I think it would be a survey saying like, who are you? When do your kids go to school? What sort of support do you need and how much? And then are you interested in having like virtual pods? And are you interested in whatever pods or in-person pods? And then I would sort it by interest and days, basically, and then connect the people. But we'll probably need the teachers to tell the kids, to tell the parents to check their email and fill it out. Because if I know parents, like I only kind of half read what I see. And if there's something like imperative, I kind of skim through and go back to working throughout the day.
Yeah, it would be good to have it stand out because it gets lost in the email otherwise.
We could, I have a thought on that. Marco, I'll talk to you about that. I have an idea.
Well, I guess,
Yeah,
oh, go ahead.
I do think from administration or from the board, some connection to that this is taken at that level is important. So people do feel heard and not put to the side. Oh, just go talk to other parents. No, it's like knowing that the decision makers are behind exploring these options and figuring out what people need and doing, you know, whatever the community can possibly do to make sure we all survive this terrible, you know, dilemma we're in. I think that's important to people. A lot of people expressed not feeling safe and wanting to be heard, and I would have felt a lot better if that discussion would have come from the school somehow rather than be independent. And I'm not going to rehash what others have said, but I had to read that letter a couple times, you know, and go, what is going on here? So I really appreciated when I think it was Kat that reached out and said, hey, let's do this meeting. I thought, great. There's a sanctioned forum where we can all participate. That, I think that's an important feature to getting together and trying to solve these problems.
I really, that we actually have to give a lot of the credit because it was a group effort putting that response email together, and also to just make sure and reinforce that parents know that there is this space and that the Student Support Council exists so that we can have this discourse and so that we can have brainstorming sessions. That's really what it's for, is to support our kids and to support each other. So that's, I mean, that's the whole point of having it. It's our version of a PTO.
I think that's great that you say that, because like with reality and with TCAPS and having been in PTO, like that's not what PTO is for us. So when parents are frustrated with school stuff, we're just here to raise money for the schools. We weren't really a voice that could help navigate things for schools. So I think for parents to know that this is that repurpose, or is partially what this purpose is of this group, so they do know where to turn to, especially the new parents. I think that's great, because just from experience of being a TCAPS family for like 14 years, you know, when you're upset with a school, like all you can do is call the principal, and then it stops there, you know, and you can kind of go up, but there's like a lot of feeling unheard. And then when they come to the PTO, things go crazy and things didn't go well, you know, so Green Spy is very different. If we're coming from like TCAPS, I don't know that a lot of people would realize that this is different.
I actually spent several years on PTO directly before going, and actually was doing both PTO and SSC at the same time at one point, with one kid one place and one kid another. And I was just kind of like, for me personally, when they were both here. So I know for me personally, it was important to let parents know that this is an option, that it's here already. We don't have to start from the ground up. It's that communication strain is there, and this community can keep doing that. So that's really personally important to me, to be like, hey, no, we're here, and we're here for all of us.
As Kat said, we're happy to set up other meetings. I will make them whenever I can. I've been super busy over the past week and a half, but any questions, concerns, if you hit Facebook or you go out to the website, our emails are there, Kat and I. Please reach out. We really want to make sure that we are together on this. And thank you everyone for coming and being brave enough to speak up when it's hard.
There's also an SSC Facebook page. So the Green Spire School Student Support Council, there's a Facebook page we're reachable there too. So we try to make it as reachable as possible.
Is that it that just got posted? Good.
Thanks guys so much for, I know, doing this extra meeting and sharing this extra meeting and all the work and time that you put into this. We really appreciate it. I really hope that we can have some time to, like, you know, meet again, maybe get some more of the other people than the email that had some different concerns to come together, because I think there's a lot of value in everyone's opinions and needs. Maybe opinions isn't the right word. So thanks for making this a good forum for us to be able to talk in. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming and talking. It helps us work together, all of us parents.
All right. I think that might be the cue then. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, guys.